Hey, what's up everyone? RaincloudGaming here. It's great to see you all again. I'm sorry it's been so long since the last video, and a ridiculous amount of time since the last commentary. I've just been very busy with work and with enjoying life in Tokyo, and I've also been getting a lot of colds lately. Like, I've been here in Japan since September time. And I didn't get any illnesses at all really until about January. Since then I've just been bouncing from one cold to another, it seems. But I'm feeling fine today. I think the reason is because it's now getting really hot in Tokyo, and my British face can't deal with that, I guess. Because I'm used to the cold weather. It's now getting real hot and humid, which is nice. Anywho, what are we watching here? Well, I'll tell you. I've still got a bit of a cough, which will make its presence felt throughout this commentary, I'm sure. What we are watching is the, well, as some of you may remember, like, last few videos I've released on this channel have been highlights from the Golden Week, and the Golden Week is a week in April or May in Japan, when there are lots of national holidays all in a row. So people working in like the public sector have a lot of days off all of a sudden, like a week or 2 weeks off. So I took these 2 weeks and used them the best. Well, I had about 6 days off, I guess. I took these days off and used them the only way I know how, which is to play some Geometry Wars. And this is when I hit my last 9 billion run, 9.4. And I told the story in the description of that video, but I'll tell it again briefly here. Like, I'd been playing Geometry Wars, Pacifism obviously, on and off. Like, when I had an hour or so in the evening, I'd play it a bit, and I just wasn't getting any kind of decent scores. And I was like, man, what is going on? I was feeling like okay, but it just wasn't happening. And I didn't know if it was my TV still, but I couldn't really believe that because I had hit 9 billion back in December, and I think maybe it's the new recording setup I've got, but none of that really rang true. So I just figured I'd really just spend a whole load of time playing it, just to try and get really reacquainted with the game and not worry about getting good scores even. I knew I wouldn't because I wasn't playing well, and I don't tend to play well during long sessions, but it was like a Saturday and I just played and played and played until I was just weeping blood, and I was doing awful when I went out that evening in a real mood because it just hadn't gone so well. And the next day, which was Sunday, a Sunday, I went out in the morning, had some coffee. I came back and something had changed. I just felt like the game was suddenly so easy, and I was sitting in a much more relaxed position than normal. Normally I'm perched at the front of my seat like a meerkat, and I listened to particular music. This time I just changed everything. I was slumped in my chair like I don't know, a different kind of meerkat, and I was listening to music I wasn't really familiar with. In fact, I was listening to Berlin era Bowie, which I've been meaning to listen to for a long time, but I hadn't, and it was awesome. And I had the window open, so there was lots of noise from outside. It was just a very different set of circumstances. And I was just playing so well, and I hit 9 billion, and then like 2 goes later I hit 7, and I was just hitting all these crazy runs. So then the next day, it was also a day off, and I hit 6.7 or whatever it was that I uploaded the other day. And now we've got what we got here, the last runs that I had on the Monday evening before I had to start work again. And I just hit, it was just insane, I couldn't help but hit billion plus scores. Once before, when I was living in the UK, I hit 5 consecutive billions, but those were all 1 billion runs, apart from the last, which is like a 2 or a 3. This was much higher quality than that. So I figured it would be, I've been, uploading the highlights from that time, and this is the end of it really. This was the end of the Golden Week. And it was hard to stop playing because I was doing so well, but I had to. And since then, the next couple of sessions that I played were okay. I've hit some decent runs that I'll upload at some point. I paused it here. I haven't watched this since I did the runs, so I really can't remember anything of what was going on. But then a couple of weekends ago, I haven't played much at all recently, but like a weekend or two ago, I thought I'd try and do the same thing, like play loads, and then see what happened, and oh, it was awful, and I haven't played since. So I'm hoping maybe doing this commentary will put me back in a good frame of mind towards the game. There's one gameplay thing I wanted to talk about, which was when I hit that 9 billion run. My mind was just wandering. I wasn't really concentrating that much. It's one of those situations where I didn't need to concentrate. It was all stupidly easy. It's just never normally like that, but it was that time. And one of the things that I was thinking about was different ways of dying in Pacifism, and what it means for you as a player, and how your progress is going. And I was thinking that there are ways of dying that are very discouraging, where you've been crowded out and you can't put your finger on what went wrong. And then there are ways that are not encouraging, because it's never nice to die, but ones that are not worth getting annoyed about, which are just mistakes, hitting dumbbells when you should be hitting the gate. The reason I think they are not to be depressed about, because it suggests there's nothing fundamentally wrong with your style. Yeah, mistakes happen, and there's no reason that your next game you won't do just as well and not make a mistake. But if you don't know why it went wrong, if you can't pinpoint a situation where everything you were going to die, or some tactical mistake or something like that, then it means there's something more fundamentally wrong with your style. That's just something I was musing on. I mean, I saw I was on like 6 billion. Then I was thinking, is that really the case though? Because even if, like, the dumbbell example is a really obvious example of a big mistake that's it's just dumb, you can't do anything about it, so no point worrying. But if you look back over a run, I'm sure there's always a moment where you can see it went wrong, where you lost control and maybe you either had to take on a difficult, risky maneuver, or you had to keep your cool and not do that, but instead you did the other thing, whether that's not taking on the risky maneuver, or taking on one that's so stupid you're never going to survive, when you should have just kept cool. I guess there's always a moment, if you look carefully enough, ooh, nice, when it went wrong. So I guess every death has something to learn from. And that leads me to another thing, which is, I really did, although I was kind of, well, I said just now that I was sitting differently and I was listening to music I wasn't very familiar with. What I think this indicates is that I was all around more relaxed in my being. Ooh, yes, keep going. I was a much more relaxed cat than normal. Normally, okay. Normally I'll be perched on my chair and listening to like pacifism music that works when I want to do well. Come on. When I want to do well at pacifism. Instead, this time I was just really chilling on a nice sunny day, and this really, I think, reflected itself in my style of play. Now, normally I'm a real stickler for trying to hit every gate perfectly, to try and always go back on myself and shepherd the blues, and try and do the perfect suppression style gameplay. So I think that's my style. I call it suppression style. It's all about keeping the blues on the defensive, so I never get into difficult situations. That's the theory. And so when I'm playing that style and I realise that the blues have built up a real head of steam, I kind of get depressed, like it's gone now, I can't make it to 10 billion, so I should just give up, and I end up doing some stupid manoeuvre, and that's it. But so that's what I would call suppression style, where it's all geared around hitting the gates so well and so aggressively that the blues never have a chance to build up a threatening position. I guess I would contrast that with a navigation style, which is based around having confidence in your ability to escape, even when the blues take on really difficult level of momentum, and even when, and so focusing not on hitting the gates perfectly, but on keeping space in other ways, maybe clearing out gates without worrying about hitting them perfectly, or just making sure your ship is in the right position on the screen rather than focusing on the next gate and how well you're going to hit it. Now those are probably two caricatures, suppression and navigation style. I'm sure every high-scoring run combines those things at some point. But I tend to think of myself as erring more on the side of suppression. I mean, I've obviously watched Silverlord's recent amazing 12 billion, 11 billion runs. And there's a guy who is so comfortable with navigating under intense pressure. And I'm not saying he's got a navigation style or what. I mean, we only see his best run, so it's hard to know about anyone other than yourself. And like I say, probably most players have incorporated both of these aspects into their game. But I was seeing him on 2 billion, and he's being chased by a pack that I would definitely be thinking, okay, game over. And he's just surviving for so long, and then it just keeps on surviving. And I was thinking, man, obviously this style of play has worked for me to an extent, but if I'm gonna push on, then I need to be open to new styles and adapting and so on. So I think if you look back at the 9 billion run that I hit in Golden Week, it's much less geome intensive. It's got a much less lower geome than my last 9 billion, which I didn't manage to record, but I'm sure it was around 18,000. And the last 9.2 one that I got, I think it was around 15,000 geome, which is, I've got that in less than 6 billion before, because I was being much more relaxed about going back on myself and trying to suppress the blues. I was much more about placement of the ship on the screen, trying to avoid getting into the corners. This is day one stuff, but still, you never stop learning it, I guess. And so I guess I'm trying to still do that now. The problem is that Golden Week, like I say, I was in a very relaxed frame of mind, so it happened naturally. I'm sure that I'd watched the Silverlord's runs recently, so it was probably, oh, this was so good. It was probably working away in my unconscious and how I was playing. That's so bad. But it mainly happened, I think, because I was relaxed. And I was just happy to see what happened. But now, obviously, I hit this 9 billion, then a 7 billion, and 6 billion, and then you're seeing what's going on here today, where I was in great form. And now my mind's saying to me, the key is navigation, not suppression. I mean, you need both of them, and what you really need is not to be thinking too much at all, but, what can you do? So anyway, that's Golden Week news. Hopefully I'll get back to that kind of form soon. In the meanwhile, I guess the big news that's happened recently is the Xbox One. I'm sure you guys have probably heard enough. We don't really know anything about this machine, but I just figured I'd share my thoughts. Firstly, it's an awful name. awful name, especially when you see it written down. But I guess like most people, right now I'm kind of not at all infused by it. I'm not into. I guess I'm really caught between two impulses. Like, on the one hand, I guess I'm an old-fashioned gamer. I like games machines playing games on, and I didn't really get into any. And I was never really interested in the motion capture stuff from the Wii or the Kinect. I associate games with joypads, which is a really illogical position, but it's hard for me to make that mental leap into imagining that motion capture games will be anything other than a novelty, like a party game kind of thing. So there's that. But on the other hand, why should it be the case? That's such a conservative perspective to have. And so on the one hand, I'm not at all interested in all the multimedia stuff on the Xbox One. I only want a games machine, and I don't see how having something that's... I don't see the need, but it's fulfilling, to be honest. This multimedia extravaganza. All I want is a games machine. And I was really disappointed to see the one game I've got any interest in is Quantum Break, which is the new Remedy game. Remedy, the makers of Alan Wake, which is one of my favourite games on the 360, and I was I was really looking forward to Alan Wake 2 reveal, but that didn't happen. Anywho, I'm sure it will at some point. That's the one game right now, but I imagine could convince me, because they're such a brilliant games designer. I'm sure they've got some really great ideas for how to use the new sorts of technology that we're seeing for a great gaming experience. But am I willing to shell out the money just for one game? Well, we'll see what happens, I guess, at E3. But the other thing is that since Geometry Wars came into my life, really the only games that I've played on the 360 have been Alan Wake, Geometry Wars, and Street Fighter, with any great depth. And there are so many great games still to play. I haven't played any of the Bioshock games, or what's that one, Shepard, Mass Effect. Haven't played those, haven't played like Oblivion, Skyfall. I'm sure there are lots of others, so if I ever stop playing Geometry Wars, I'm sure there's lots more to be doing with 360 before I get that machine. So that's the Xbox One. The other thing that's bugging me right now is the new YouTube layout. I know it's been around for a while, but I didn't take it until it was forced onto me this week. It just looks ugly, man. The whole Google interface, God, it's so ugly. And they've taken away my picture, my background picture, which I had since I first started this channel back in 2010. Hey man, I know it's such a cliche to moan about YouTube changes, and we'll get used to it very quickly, I'm sure, but I don't know, this one seems so unnecessary. What else do we have in the news? Well, some of you may have noticed that there's one band I've been using a lot in my recent uploads. I mean like in the last 3 months, called the Silver Jews. Man, that is a band. That's what I've been really listening to since in 2013 in Tokyo, and they're just so good. Highly recommend. Okay, so I think this is the last run in the set. Now, it's a weird thing when you start hitting consecutive billions. Like the first one you hit, it's the same as usual. It's like, okay, that's encouraging, that's good. I wish I'd lived longer, but this is cool. Then you hit 2, then you're kind of thinking, I'm really in good form now. Hopefully at some point in this session, something's really going to come off. When you hit 3, then you're thinking, hey, this is sweet. How many can I get in a row? And it's such a dumb thing to think about because no one cares. But it suddenly, just hitting a billion becomes the aim. And who knows, maybe one of the later runs in this set, if I'd been playing less towards just surviving for a billion, and more towards doing the best that I possibly can, taking on more risks, maybe I would have hit another mega run. But I didn't, and they're fun to have. So, what was it? I think it was a 1.9, a couple of 3s, a 1, then this run. And they're pretty exciting little mini games, I guess. Like, again, it's so hard to make yourself play like this, because the reason I was playing so well is that for some reason it was just easy, and it's not normally easy. So I don't know exactly what to do to recreate those conditions. I guess I was just feeling very confident, able just to very clearly perceive what was happening on the screen. See there, I went back on myself, and I'm letting the blues take on momentum, so I'm just confident I'm going to survive. Is this the last one? I'm not sure. I may have just given a spoiler. And I just knew from like 90 million or whatever, I'm definitely going to get a billion. It's just, there's no question I'm not. How does that happen? Okay, so sorry, that was the 2 billion. Then I believe this is where it ends. So I'm probably thinking now still, man, I'm playing out my skin here. I'm easily going to get another billion. And then, well, we'll see what happens. Alright guys, hopefully more videos coming soon. Take care.